Hello and welcome to a brand new Five Heart podcast brought to you by CoreNation.com, part of the SB Nation Podcast Network. I'm your host, Greg Mahochko, and joining me, not as always, but for the first time in a long time, Todd Wolverton, the other half of John and Todd's Monday Night Therapy. We get a double dose of you, Todd, because John he's not feeling the best tonight. He said he's got a pretty gosh darn severe headache. So thank you so much for filling in. Excited to catch up with you. It's been a while. How have you been?
Yeah, no doubt. Well, I'm not sure a double dose of Todd is good for anybody, but Greg, it has been a while. It's been, I can't even remember the last time that I've been able to sit down and chat with you a little bit. But
I think the last time we got together was right around the time that this little piece of paper was filled out. I think the last time we talked, honestly, because after that Northwestern game, you and John started having much-needed therapy sessions.
That's right.
And we had to go a different direction. So
yeah.
But excited to have you back. It has been, dare I say, an eventful last few days. Let's just go ahead and jump right in it, shall we?
Sounds good.
One of the most highly sought after transfer portal offensive linemen is coming to Lincoln.
That's what I hear. That's good news. Good news.
Walter Rouse, I'm assuming, from Stanford, and this is where I said and folks, when you're reading this article on Core Nation on Friday, you'll know it is time to buy your Pipeline Jerky. This is the honey barbecue pork jerky. They also have the peppercorn beef jerky. Get that because we gonna need it when you get one of the most highly, decorated or most accomplished offensive linemen coming to be desperate assistance on that offensive line, Todd.
Yeah, first of all, he has played very, very well since he's been at Stanford. Well, hey, he's from Stanford. He's smart. And dare I say, the last transfer we had from Stanford did okay a number of years ago, resulting in a 1997 Nebraska national championship.
And so what you're saying is that 30 years from now, 20 years from now, Walter Rouse is going to come back and fuck over the program.
Well, let's hope not.
I don't see it.
Let's hope that Walter Rouse uses that Stanford education he has after his career in football is done, to improve humanity, or something like that. But,
fool us once, shame on you. Fool us twice, shame on us. But we'll probably let you keep fooling us because we're gluttons for punishment.
Well, I think it's a good deal. Here's the thing: we've got a couple of offensive linemen coming in that are going to make a difference. And to me, or at least from what I understand, what I read, they're definitely upgrades over who we've lost. And I've said it before, and I said it on Monday night when John and I were talking a little bit about this. We've got everybody but Hickson coming back. And, while people want to say that our offensive line has not been very good, well, it's part of that is because we've had young guys playing.
Right.
We've discussed the offensive line woes, up one side and down another. But they will be a year older. Hopefully, new strength and conditioning program is going to have them more explosive, stronger. So this is good. This is good for the offensive line.
We have our first true question of the night comes from a friend of the show from across the pond, Blaine Cole. If you know, why did this particular lineman enter the portal?
I don't know for sure, but I bet it has something to do with David Shaw leaving. I would think that might have something to do with it. My answer would be like, I don't know. So I like yours a little bit better. And then Tyler says, we may finally have some offensive line depth. And we've been
we've been hunting that for what, the better part of 2 decades?
I would say so. I would say since Coach Callahan.
Okay.
Quite honestly.
No, I don't disagree. I'm trying to think back to a time where you would lose a star like a Teddy Prochaska, for example, and have somebody step in who was, like 1A, 1B type of caliber. It's been one here and somewhere far down is number 2. So we'll take depth. Tyler, we'll hold on to that depth and crush its soul, probably. I think we're going to talk about it. In fact, the university or the athletic department, or however you want to categorize it, put a social media press release out about their 3 NIL initiatives or collaboratives and leading the nation. It has to that has to play the factor, right? I mean, why else would I hate to be negative, but why else would a Walter Rouse choose Nebraska?
Well, considering he chose Nebraska over a couple of programs, and off the top of my head, I didn't prep as much as I should have for tonight, I guess. But
in your defense, I asked you to join the show about a half hour ago.
Yeah. Well, I know he had offers from some programs that have been much better than Nebraska has been recently. But maybe that kind of speaks to Matt Rule. And the first article I read gave a lot of props to Donovan Raiola, in the recruiting process. But none of us were all that impressed with Donovan Raiola 1.0. Now we're
right.
Donovan Raiola 2.0.
And I think, not to interrupt you there, because that's rude of me, and I apologize, but I feel like the Husker fans as a whole, and maybe we're already starting to, change that Donovan Raiola narrative, but I do think you're exactly right. There was the first year Donovan Raiola that we saw that we didn't like, but clearly the head coach, the offensive coordinator saw something in him that they do like, and now we're getting some much-needed help at the offensive line. It can't be a coincidence. Raiola's ineffectiveness, I guess, of 2022 has to be tied to the previous regime, does it not?
I would think so. And, who knows what to believe, but, there was speculation that he and Frost had a falling out, real early in the season, for whatever reason that there was, and I don't know. But look, Matt Rule has had success. Marcus Satterfield has had some success, and he has told the media that he was blown away in his conversation with Donovan Raiola. Take the handcuffs off Donovan Raiola and let's see what happens.
Yeah, I do think that the coaching staff changes that were forced upon our Matt Rule's predecessor left kind of we're a big sour note, and I can see a world where, I hate to say it, but out of spite or pettiness, he didn't maybe want to give Raiola a fair shot. Now, we don't know. This is all speculation, and I'm not here to bury the guy. He's been buried enough by Husker fans that he dug his way out all the way to Phoenix or Glendale or wherever, Arizona. Lonnie, with the observation here, Todd, no, John. John is out with a pretty severe headache tonight, so he wants to be here certainly, but we err on the side. Lord knows I've missed for less.
And sorry to disappoint, Lonnie. Throw something at me and I'll do my best to answer it. I'll I'm not going to tap dance, but I'll do my best.
Well, coming back to the why would Walter Rouse pick Nebraska? Fred says probably sees an easier path to start, plus the chance to go through rules program development wise. It begs the question. I don't disagree, Fred, but I want to ask you, Todd, if you were either a highly sought after, 5 or high 4-star recruit coming out of high school, or thank you, Roger. I feel bad for all of you. But no, if you were a highly sought after recruit coming out of high school, or one of these transfer portal who's not just going to disappear in the portal and have to drop down a league, or out of the Power 5, something like that. If you were highly sought after, would you take your chances of going to a Georgia, knowing you may be on a national championship team, you may never see the field, or do you relish a little bit of the challenge of going to a Nebraska, or I don't know, like an Iowa State? Not that they're necessarily anybody's high, high on anybody's list of places to land, but you know what I mean.
I get it, and I guess here's what I think. Anybody who has 1 year of eligibility left, and I think that's all that Rouse has. I think he transferred with 1 year to play. You're transferring where you're going to play. I mean, he's not coming to Nebraska. I mean, I think he expects that he's going to have to compete for a position, but I think he views himself as at the top of the heap, competing for that position. You're not going to transfer someplace and take a risk that you're going to be behind somebody else in your last year of eligibility. That's just not going to happen.
Sorry, I'm just adding or responding to some of the comments about Owen saying, "Get well, John." And then he says, "Todd, this is the first 5-heart we've seen you on, and guessing it's been a while." I don't think we were. The live shows really started right at the either tail end of the off season or beginning of the season. So I don't know if we ever maybe we did a few live 5-hearts before you and John broke off to. What is the a spinoff show?
Well, we did a couple of live shows, Greg, and the last 5-heart show that I was on was with you and John and Haas, and there were 4 of us, and that was Haas had maybe been back once or twice, and I mean. So, that's when we kind of spun off, and John and I were basking in our misery after the Northwestern game, and he kind of tossed out the idea, what do you think of doing a Monday night show, which, quite honestly, actually works a lot better for me doing something on Monday night than middle of the week, just with what's going on here. So
sorry to inconvenience you, Todd.
No. Hey, listen, I'm here.
Don Dre says, "Todd, what's your last name or the club you wrestled for?"
Yeah, this was at the tail end of our Monday night thing. I asked Don Dre. I saw him post the week before, and I didn't have time to get it out. And towards the tail end on Monday night, I asked Don if he wrestled for West. I said, when you were a kid, did you wrestle for West Side Wrestling Club? And he replied, yes, I did. And then we signed off just moments after that. Don, my name is Todd Wolverton, Wolverton. I wrestled for the Council Bluffs Rec program. And, I remember vividly back in those days that Council Bluffs and West Side, we had some real scraps. And my memory isn't so good that I can remember how many times you and I did face off in the squared circle, as Greg would call it.
Wait a minute. In real wrestling, it's the circled circle.
It's the circle, yeah. But, no, Don and I wrestled, once, twice, 3 times maybe. And now Aaron's getting in on this. Who won? Well, this was 50 flipping years ago. So all I'll say is I won more than I lost overall, but I honestly cannot tell you how Don and I I don't remember. I just know I wrestled him a couple of times. I know he had a younger brother that was a good wrestler too. I remember that.
I think we all want to know, Todd and Don. Feel free to chime in via the comments. Who would win now?
Well, I haven't seen Don for 50 years, but I guarantee you that I probably got pounds on him.
I think Fred's getting in on the sports entertainment side of things. John would make a great shit-talking heel manager.
Well, I'll tell you what, and I don't want to. I'm not trying to supersede anything here, but Fred, if you show up on Monday night and mention something like that, that will, in fact, do that, John, because. Excuse me, Fred. Do it, Fred, because that will open the door for me to tell a story about when John and I lived on the same dorm floor, and I kicked him and two other guys' ass in the world championship of 3-on-1 wrestling. It was three of them against me and John. They were the Flying Salami Brothers. Long story, but I'll tell it sometime. John's bark is a lot worse than his bite, so yes, he would make a good trash talking manager.
Oh, that's great. I didn't know we'd get so deep into the anecdotes and stories, but I'm here for it. So Walter Rouse is in or N. He's coming to Lincoln, which is great. Did you see that they are considering? I can't remember if I saw that they have the NCAA has decided, or if they're considering eligibility changes. Fred, I gotta highlight this one. Way to completely throw me off topic. Fred coming in with a heater. Our former HC was probably a Flying Salami brother too. Okay, I gotta reset now. Let me try again.
The NCAA, Greg. The NCAA.
Yes, the NCAA transfer portal eligibility. Something, and I can't remember. I skimmed the article without reading to retain information. Why would I do that? I only host a podcast. But it was, if you enter the portal, sure, that first time, you immediate eligibility on the back end. But if you portal a second time, then you might lose a year of eligibility.
Yeah, it's I didn't read the details either, but it sounded like at least if you transfer the second time, you're not going to be immediately eligible. You might have to sit for a year or whatever it might be. And we had some conversation on Slack among the coordination staff, and Nate McHugh had suggested some changes he'd like to see, and that's one of the ones that I tossed in there. I don't have a problem with a freebie, for the first time. And I guess I really don't have a problem, on a second time if your coach leaves or something like that to have immediate eligibility. But, hey, we've in one shape or another, we've all bitched about some aspect of the portal. I'm sure we have. I don't think anybody who pays attention to college football is just, overwhelmingly in favor of it as it is. But it looks to me like they're taking some steps to try to rein it in a little bit, and that's good. I don't think the portal's a bad thing. Some people are going to disagree with me, but it does need some restrictions and it does need some structure to it.
I again, I don't disagree. I agree pretty well, whole cloth with what you said. The old Greg, like old man Greg, be like, "Nah, man, you commit to a school, you got to stay there and graduate and then go sell cars or sell insurance or, whatever you would do with the name at said school." I becoming more flexible. But you're right. There's a little too much. I don't know if like freedom's the right word. It's just it's a little too Wild West.
Yeah, I agree, and I think it will. It will work itself out to a degree, and you got the commissioner down from the SEC conference. Is it Greg Sankey? Last name Sankey. Um, and it was he even said that they ought to get rid of the early signing period, and I would be in favor of that too. There just needs to be. I think there are some changes that they can make to bring a little bit more sanity to the Wild West, and so hopefully some of that does happen.
I think I saw the best reason or argument for doing away with the early signing period is that there's still football to play. Like, the dust hasn't settled on the college football season yet, and now you're having, 19, 20, 21 year or I'm sorry, signing period, 17, 18-year-old young men, well, I and also I think somebody in the Slack chat room said that it was a nice reprieve from real the college football dead period after between the national championship game and spring ball. You had the first Wednesday of February, and so I could do without the December signing period.
Yep, I could too. On the flip side, I know that there are people that say they ought to just get rid of the whole concept of a signing period. An athlete can sign whenever they want after a certain point or something. I don't necessarily agree with that either. But again, things have changed dramatically. I think starting kind of with the pandemic, which gave people a lot of time to think about things and reflect and look at other possibilities and stuff. And NCAA, they are weak. They are a very weak organization, and until they are able to reestablish themselves a bit, who knows? But this is a positive step in my mind.
They got no spine. NCAA.
Yeah.
Got no. What is it? Major League 2. No marbles. So,
yeah.
Speaking of the Big Ten, while we're transitioning down, and I know you mentioned SEC commissioner, Big Ten kind of looking for a commission.
Yeah.
Of all people, so I remember 2020, Kevin Warren was being dragged across shards of glass for the way he handled the football season in 2020, amid the COVID pandemic. It's to see that he's look, he's going to the NFL, to be like the CEO or whatever of the Chicago Bears, which is fine and dandy, but that's not a step up in my opinion.
Kevin Warren came from the NFL, and the one bit that I read that kind of made some sense is he was with the Vikings when they got that new stadium built. Bears are in the process of moving, away from downtown Chicago, right off the lake, out to Arlington. And, there's going to be a lot of hard feelings there, and there's going to be a lot of issues with the Bears. And, Kevin Warren has some experience walking in that shark-infested, arena, so to speak. Kevin Warren, I think in hindsight, he followed. It's always very hard to follow a legend, and he followed a legend. Jim Delaney was a legend in the Big Ten, and Jim Delaney had his hands in a lot of the modernization of college athletics. I mean, he was very, very active in that. But I think you got to look at Kevin Warren. He brokered just an incredible television deal with the Big Ten, and he got the Big Ten back on their feet after the pandemic. But I don't know. The question was who's going to be the commissioner. I don't pay enough attention to that, but I guess I have two quick thoughts. First of all, it bothers me about how corporate college athletics have gotten, but just because Todd Wolverton doesn't like it, it ain't going to turn back. But it does worry me when I see people that are looking outside the realm of athletics, we saw a list today somewhere of potential candidates. I don't want someone associated with Fox Sports. I don't want somebody associated with any of those outside entities that are engaged in the entertainment aspect. I guess if I had the power and the authority to hire the next AD, I'd hire Gene Smith, the athletic director at Ohio State. He has overseen, the development of one of the, if not maybe the strongest athletic program in the country, at least one of the top 2 or 3.
I don't think you're allowed to use the word "the" and not pay them $10. There
you go. Okay. Well, he's done an incredible job at Ohio State. He knows the Big Ten. He's a very strong leader. So, my opinion, Gene Smith makes a lot of sense to be the next AD. Keep it in house.
Gary Barta. I did that purely for your reaction, and it was so worth it. I'm so happy right now.
There is no bigger asshole in college athletics than Gary Barta. He is just pathetic. Just pathetic.
All right, so Owen Walker had said a few moments ago now, he laughs and took him, meaning Kevin Warren, to court to have a season. You're right, Owen, and we had a 2/3 of a season, and we still had a losing record. But, and I'll say this, the Big Ten as an entity doesn't care about 2/3 of a football season. They care about billions and billions of dollars from TV rights. So, it's just not. I don't know. Josh made it here eventually and said that, I got to get it here. Steve Sipple has an opinion that Kevin Warren is angling for NFL commissioner in the future.
Why not? Roger Goodell isn't going to be around forever.
And can't really do worse than Roger Goodell.
No.
God, he's such a worthless sack of shit.
Yeah. You get paid an incredible amount of money to kiss people's asses. That's what you do. And you got, Roger Goodell has to kiss 30 or 32, I can't remember the number, however many owners there are. He has to kiss their asses all the time. And he gets paid very, very well for doing that. And so I suppose Kevin Warren kind of looks at that and says, hey, I can kiss some asses too.
Hey, Todd.
Yeah.
Hey, Todd. Hey, Todd. What's your price? What's your ass kissing price? Asking for a friend.
Asking for a friend. My ass kissing price. Oh, geez. Let's not walk down that road tonight, man.
All right. Get a bourbon or two in you, and we'll come back. We'll cycle back.
Yeah.
I want to finish up this conversation that we talked about your amateur wrestling career, because Don did follow up and said he remembers you were a very good wrestler and you have a nice family.
Yeah, it's no different. 50 years ago, 40, 50 years ago, the families were very invested in the sport of wrestling, as they are today. And, a lot of times on planks, sitting on planks in gymnasiums and, part of it, and God, I don't want to go down this path that deep, but my dad is a very sociable guy, and my mom is pretty sociable too. And even though we'd strap it up and fight like hell on the mat against those guys from West Side, my dad, when the dust had all cleared between rounds or whatever, he'd be out there talking with Don's dad, and oh man, there there was a Knutson that wrestled for West Y that ended up being a stud in high school, and a lot of those guys, West Side Wrestling Club, I guess. But yeah, those are fun days, Don. Those were great days. I remember a lot of it fondly.
And to your credit, Todd, you still have a nice family.
Yeah,
I've met your wife. She's lovely. Your daughter seems okay.
Yeah.
You have a granddaughter?
Got a granddaughter. Yeah. We try.
All right. Well, let's keep on rolling here. Owen Walker had this. We were talking about Walter Rouse earlier, and Owen says the talk in Lincoln is, should we be careful of assuming Rouse is a predicting starter? Rule will have competition. I don't disagree that that's a bad thing. I would think it would look bad for the culture if Rule was giving out starting jobs, and I don't disagree.
No.
However, if Walter Rouse was competing at a high, consistently high level for a Power 5. Now, granted, Stanford didn't have the best year by my recollection, but I don't know why. At least at the top of, he wouldn't be at the top of the, head of the pack, leading the squad.
Well, Matt Rule is not making promises to Walter Rouse, and he's not anointing him starter. I mean, like I mentioned, I think, it's going to be a competitive position, and maybe I didn't phrase it well the way I said it, but, he looks at coming to Nebraska as the place where he is going to start. I mean, and he believes that he will be the starter, perhaps with not as tough a competition as he might have faced at Georgia or Michigan or wherever else he was looking.
Well, we talked about portal incoming. I feel like it's time to talk about portal outgoing. And let's see here. We have it was announced, I believe, within the last either yesterday or today, that DeColdis Crawford found a landing spot, and he's going to go down to Jackson State, the post Deion Sanders Jackson State. And to the best of my knowledge, I think that's the only one that maybe needed updated.
Yeah, that's the only one I've seen lately too. So there's
Billy Kemp is coming in.
Yeah, wide receiver
talk about that.
from Virginia.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. No, DeColdis won't be DeColdis down in Jackson. A little bit warmer down there.
Ooh, burn.
Yeah, well. Yeah.
Well, and I think the biggest, and I don't know, regret, but we never got to see anything that Crawford could do here in Nebraska. He was injured and really didn't play at all. So, maybe he was just kind of tied to the previous staff or to Mickey Joseph. I think that's what it was. I think he was kind of tied to Mickey Joseph, and so it is what it is.
Yeah.
James is here and acknowledges. Yep, it's Todd Extra Edition, or as I said at the outset, a double dose of Todd.
Double dose of Todd.
Who doesn't want that? Well, let's transition. It's been all the talk. It was a top 10 moment on ESPN's Sports Center and their top 10. But in the closing seconds of last night's Nebraska women's basketball game, and I do mean closing seconds, and Nebraska already had the game in hand. I mean, it wasn't close. It wasn't we've got to hit this half-court shot to win the day, win the game, anything like that. But Kendall Moriarty just trying to, by my understanding, the way I read it was that she was just trying to beat the shot clock and threw up a one-armed sidearm sling from half court in the corner. And Todd, she hit that shot with greater ease than I hit with my old knees and broken ass and unathletic, uncoordinated self on a free throw or a layup. It is you could tell she was not even trying. I don't even know if she was looking. She said, "I got to heave this ball."
Yeah. Well, that's what it looked like. I mean, they wanted to get the shot off, before. Yeah, I don't know. They were dribbling out the last few seconds. I'm the last one that should be talking basketball, but I did see the replay, and it just, you're right. She just slung it up there. Just kind of a sidearm underhand toss, and it just went in. And I'm glad that it was just kind of one of those carefree launch it things rather than just taking an intentional shot, because that really, really, really would have been rubbing salt in the wound. As bad as they were beating them. I think Penn State can probably walk away from that saying, "Oh Jesus, nothing could go right for us tonight," or something.
You're absolutely right. There's a difference between trying to run up the score and having a lucky shot. I know Scott Van Pelt called it the best thing he saw all day. So we'll take that. We're going to cycle back to transfer portal, I suppose, because Brian, with a good question, but he said, not question, statement. He said, going to have to have some more bodies hit the road to get down to 85 scholarships by next summer. That was something that HCSF did like to do, and he was just trying to get, he was trying to win the quantity, not the quality game, I think. So,
yeah, it's I haven't seen anything recently. Generally speaking, we get some data on where numbers are setting, but yeah, it would make sense that Nebraska is going to be over their limit of 85 guys right now. But there will be some peeps, that during spring practice that will be encouraged to find another place to play, and they'll get it whittled down. But I guess, quite honestly, I don't know what the total number is of Nebraska guys that are leaving that are in the portal leaving, but doggone it, in transition, I'm pretty pleased that we haven't had more go, and maybe some people would say, well, it'd been nice if some more of them would have gone, but Casey Thompson, he isn't leaving. Some of the other quarterbacks, they aren't leaving. We lost a running back, Yant, maybe a couple running backs, but a lot of guys are going to be back next year, and that's encouraging. Well, at least they're going to be back for spring, and that's encouraging. So, yeah. I
just want to say this while we're talking about the portal. This came out just a half hour ago, so as we were recording, that this is from Greg Smith Rivals on Twitter. The Huskers still on the lookout for transfer portal help, and he's reporting that a Georgia tight end transfer is visiting Nebraska tonight.
I don't think it's going to be number 19.
Well, no, the picture is number 80. But
yeah.
So, yeah, Brian, we completely agree. There's a chunk of money tied up in that quarterback room. Scholarship funds, I should say.
I think there's 8 in there. There's the 6 scholarship guys. I predicted, John and I did predictions a couple weeks ago. I think there's going to be 3 at the end of spring practice. I'm predicting 3 of them are going to be gone. I think Chubba Purdy's going to be gone. I think that the kid that's both a baseball player and a football player from the Kansas City area, I think he's going to be gone. And I would question, whether Torres or Harburg, I would guess one of those two might take off too. And people might say Smothers is going to be gone, but there will not be 6 scholarship quarterbacks going into the season next year. I don't think.
Cornhusker Corner, good to see them here and active in the chat as well. Said over the Scully limit's always better than under. It says, from what I have heard, Ohio State operates at or under their scholarship limit most of the time, which is obviously puzzling. Let's talk again quantity versus quality. Ohio State has been getting, a better number of recruits, or a number, I should say, of better recruits to word that properly. So, and what were you saying about Mikey Pauly, Todd? Aaron wants to know.
I think he's going to. I don't think he's going to be a quarterback anymore. Now, come on, Aaron. You know as well as I do that we want to see the guy on the baseball field. I think he'll still stay on the baseball field. I just don't think that he's going to hang around and be a quarterback when there's that many guys in front of him.
All right, let's. I've been tagging a lot of these. Let me untag that one. Just answer that question. Here we go. Interesting one from Terrible Just Terrible. What do you think about the possibility of Xavier Betts coming back to the team? I would say that's probably less likely since he got arrested.
Well, rumor has it. I saw something on Twitter today. Rumor has it that he's looking to return. Now,
let's look at the timeline. He left the team in March, right? In the spring, I believe. I don't remember. I'm on it.
Yeah.
I'm gonna tell you where I'm gonna search. Cornnation.com. Give me all the information I need.
But Xavier Betts, he's been kind of, he's been an interesting. It's been kind of an enigma, and some people say that
March 24th.
You're on it.
The headline says, "He who shall not be named says Xavier Betts is currently not a part of the team and no comment on the Thomas Fedone injury." So they're back-to-back bad news is there. And then it was the arrest, or there was the arrest in October, and then just like a week or two back, he was entering a transfer portal. I'm like, I didn't think you could be in a transfer portal if you're not associated with the team, but what the hell do I know?
Right. I don't. Something I read, basically said that, the previous Lubeck treated him with kids' gloves and was easy on him, and then people said that Mickey was too tough on him, and I've heard quite a bit of stuff with this kid, and I don't, is he that good to invest as much energy in him as apparently he needs? I don't know, especially with what they have coming in. Maybe he is. Maybe he's got that, incredible talent, but I don't know. I think there's other players I think they can focus on.
Cornhusker Corner says, and this is their, I guess, interpretation of some of the news that came out, their opinion. My read is that Betts was not very close with the last staff, and he had issues personally with his motivation to play the game. This new staff could get him. I could be reading way too much into it. Anything's possible. We never know.
Well, the kid, like Cornhusker Corner mentioned again, the kid can flat fly. We know that. But whatever, I sometimes think that people hang on to problems maybe a little bit longer than what you need to. I'll shut up because I don't know Xavier Betts. I don't know him personally. I don't know what kind of kid he is.
Did you all discuss this last week on your show with John? But I saw that Mo Washington entered put his name in for the draft.
I haven't seen that.
The one-time Nebraska running back. And again, it's one of those, is the juice worth the squeeze type of situations. Long one here from James, and I think what I like the most about this comment is it covers up half of your face, Todd. No, there we go. So many storylines heading into the Big Ten West next year: the rise of Illinois, the decline of Iowa, a new day in Lincoln. Can Northwestern recover? What is Minnesota? It's a state. I know that one. Why does the defending West champ seem so irrelevant? Also, Pat Fitzgerald. So that is a lot of questions that we'll answer next year. No, James, remember all those and ask it again in August.
Well, and all of them are valid questions. I mean,
Very true.
very, very well. And he didn't mention Wisconsin. Air raid Wisconsin. Toss that question in. What's that going to look like?
That is going to be. I mean, have you been to Wisconsin? Have you been to Camp Randall?
Been there twice.
Okay.
Yeah.
You visited with some Wisconsin folks, some Wisconsin fans, perhaps some Badger fans.
I have been around Wisconsin fans quite a bit. Yeah.
Are they? Nebraska fans like to win, but we also like to run the damn ball. Where's Wisconsin on that spectrum? Like, are they okay with an evolution or a change in the game, or are they kind of stuck in the mud?
I don't know that Wisconsin fans look at the game at the same level as Nebraska fans.
No, hey, that's kind of what I expected, honestly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't disagree, Joel. Joel says the air raid will be a disaster for Wisconsin because I'll tell you what was not fun. Now, as a kid, take it with a grain of salt. I was 12, 13, 15 years old. It's not fun catching a frozen football. And it gets cold in Wisconsin. So I could see where air raid would not be the best fit.
Something else that, it makes me wonder, and I'm going to go back to Nebraska, pre-Callahan. There were periods of time when the 5 offensive linemen that played the bulk of any game were all Nebraska kids, or 4 of the 5. I mean, Nebraska had a lot of kids that played on that offensive line. And the same has been true up at Wisconsin since the days of Barry Alvarez. I mean, they developed a program up there that was a very physical run first kind of a football program. And you look at those Wisconsin offensive linemen, my God, those guys are monsters. And many of them are Wisconsin kids. Now, that's the kind of kid you have in Wisconsin. From an offensive line standpoint, are they going to, that's going to be a total shift. The way that you block the air raid compared to the way you block straightforward, run the damn ball. I don't know. I don't know if it's a fit.
If you had to guess, or maybe not guess, to the best of your recollection, who's Wisconsin's most prominent offensive lineman in the last 20 years?
Well, there you go. Nobody ever knows. I don't know. I don't know.
I would say Joe Thomas.
Okay. Yeah.
Joe Thomas, Brookfield, Wisconsin.
Well, they've had a lot of good ones, and they've had a lot of big ones.
Yeah, that's true. He had a very long career. 38 years old. Had a very long career with the Browns. So.
Okay.
But anyway, yeah, like you said, most of them are nameless, faceless. I only know him because he was in the AFC North with my Steelers. So
there you go.
Real quick, we'll kind of put the close the book on Wisconsin. Cornhusker Corner says Wisconsin running the air raid from a Nebraska perspective. That seems like a horrible decision, and Wisconsin going down the wrong path. Knowing our luck, though, Wisconsin will win the Natty. Yeah, that does seem to be.
They have brought in. From what John mentioned it the other night. They've brought in 2 4-star quarterbacks through the portal, and and I'm glad you put that question up, Greg. I saw it over there.
Here to help.
Yeah, James Marshall says my question for Wisconsin is: will they spend the money necessary to not become Iowa? Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I do think that there are 2 different, approaches to athletic, or at least football. Wisconsin's not afraid to go out and make changes. Clearly, I mean they relieved Paul Chryst in the middle of the season, whereas we can't get Iowa. I mean, it works for us, but we can't. Iowa won't get rid of Brian Ferentz just because it would make an awkward Thanksgiving,
I like that.
I mean, it's just like at some point you have to do what's best for business, and I don't see that Iowa's ever going to do that. let's see. Here we go. Scott Davis wants to know, Rouse or Scott, portal guys are easily the best offensive linemen. I think that's I think an answer to a question. Here we go. Let me get the question and then we'll get the answer. Blaine Cole says, who do you rate as Big Red's best offensive lineman? And then we got an answer from Scott Davis. Says Walter Rouse or Ben Scott. These portal guys are the best. I don't disagree that the best offensive lineman is probably coming from outside of the system. But that's just me.
Yeah, and at least based upon what they've done for the teams that they've played for, I don't. Well, who was the best offensive lineman that played for Nebraska last year? Who was the best offensive lineman? Week after week, the people that score performance, they scored Ben Benhart.
Yeah.
Did I say it's not Ben Benhart? Benhart.
Bryce Benhart.
Bryce Benhart. His performance scored high a lot of games. Well, Owen Walker says Hickson, maybe. Yeah. I don't know. I honestly couldn't tell you who the best lineman was.
Honestly, I think when he's healthy, it'd be Prochaska, but he is becoming injury prone. So,
yeah.
I guess we're not done with Wisconsin. That's fine. What I like about these live shows is that you folks watching are in the driver's seat. So Brian Bauer says, does the news of Wisconsin running air raid quiet the Husker fans who whined about Fickle being a better hire than Rule?
I don't know. Maybe. Nebraska hired Rule, and I felt good about that. I can only speak for myself. I felt good about that. I mean, was he the guy I was longing for Nebraska to hire? There were half a dozen coaches that I would have been happy with if Nebraska would have hired him, and he was one of them. And then, I'll be honest with you, day or two later, Wisconsin hires Luke Fickell, and I'm thinking, oh, shit. How do we lose out on Fickell? And it's not so much that I wanted Fickell over Rule. It's just that Fickell was really never in the conversation for Nebraska. Yeah. I mean, not that you were hearing from any of the sources. But I am really surprised that Fickell is going to bring that kind of an offense to Wisconsin. That does surprise me. But it also was really a mystery to me during the bowl game that Luke Fickell was on the sideline. I thought that was a very strange thing for him to do, was to be on the sideline with the headphones on. It just didn't look right.
That question generated a lot of conversation. James says Fickell would have been more dangerous in Lincoln, and Joel says Rule was the best hire, and something else was said. Something else is always said. Rule much better hire than Fickell for Nebraska. Joel, come back here. Joel says Fickell is a defensive coach. And then, let's see. All right, we're going to jump back to offensive linemen real quick because Aaron made the comment, Hickson had a good stretch in the middle of the season, but otherwise looked like a third-string Big Ten center. I'll say this. I think the season started to wear him down. You're right, Aaron. He was very good in the middle of the season, but those last few games, I think it was fatigue. I truly think he was becoming fatigued.
Yeah, nobody really stood out to me. I guess that's kind of the point that I'm making, and maybe Hickson overall was the best. So
we mentioned both these gentlemen's names. Who's more injury prone, Prochaska or Fedone?
Seen Prochaska on the field more than I've seen Fedone on the field.
Yeah. Did you say Fedone?
I think it is Fedone.
All right. Well, I feel bad if I've been mispronouncing it all this.
But I don't know. You
Also,
could be right too. He's one of those Council Bluffs, Lewis Central kids. Same high school with Max Duggan. On the Council Tucky side of the river.
yeah. Well, nobody's perfect. Roger said at one point, "God, country, option, Runza." So he doesn't want that air raid.
Yeah.
He's like the bully in school. He sees the nerdy kid with his books, and the book says air raid. He's like, not in my hallway.
There
All right,
you
that
go.
was bad. That was a bad analogy. I apologize to everybody watching this show. Joel says we don't have enough talent on the offensive line. Beetle B says we need a lot better conditioning. And Lonnie says, speaking of, anyone hear anything on the new Husker Power?
Just seen the photographs of the new strength and conditioning coach, and I will. I would show up every day early, just because I would not want to deal with him being upset with me.
I have two questions here that kind of ask the same question. I'll go ahead and highlight them both. Blaine asked this sometime back, and I highlighted it. How would you rate overall depth on the team now, strongest and weakest areas? I guess we'll try to answer that one before we piggyback with another. I think we'll get the answer to Vince's question here, but where's our strength? Where are we deepest right now?
Running back.
Yeah, I don't disagree.
Running back. I think
Anthony Grant, AJ Allen.
That Emmett Johnson. I think that's his name. Ramir Johnson.
Gabe Irvin Jr. To the best of my knowledge.
Yeah, I think he's coming back.
Yeah, I mean, I'm very comfortable with that answer. Weakest?
Don't you still have to say the offensive line until
I think
proven
you
otherwise?
probably do. Yeah.
I'm a little concerned. I'm concerned about linebacker depth. I mean, I'm concerned about
I can see that.
What's going to be there. Wait, just a minute. Roger has the answer. Onside kicking is.
I saw
Thanks,
it.
Roger. Thank you.
You know what? Here's the thing. That moment is such a twist of the knife moment. I'm ready for Nebraska fans to stop mentioning it. I know it'll never happen. Husker Chuck says that the running back room is overstocked if that's possible, and Brian says strength. Our strength is a running back and defensive back, and we need help yet on the lines. We've been talking about food here they've been talking about food. They've been talking about Runzas and Valentinos. So Beetle B wants a Runza right now. Look, I can't get you a Runza right now. I can't get you anything right now, but I can send you to Pipeline Jerky. Get some of that sweet, sweet pork jerky. This is the honey barbecue, or you can get the peppercorn beef jerky, and you'll support a company that supports the athletic department. So, if you have to get stuck with a knife, why not do it yourself? That's true. All right. And then Vince's question, piggybacking off of Blaine's, was after all the signees and portal transfers, which position group still needs the most attention? I don't disagree, Todd. I think you hit the nail on the head. Until proven otherwise, that offensive line needs to show what they can do. So,
yeah, I would agree with that. And, the defensive line as well. But like I said, I'm worried about linebacker, but, we'll see.
Cornhusker Corner said quarterback room is pretty overstocked too. The conversation around that room seems to be who will transfer. We did discuss that, of course, a little bit back, and I don't disagree with Todd that I think after spring, maybe even before spring, that maybe 2 or 3 guys might find the exit door. Husker Chuck, well, we're getting into it already. 2023, we're in the calendar year now to talk about the season. What record would be the minimum for a satisfactory year 1 for Matt Rule? Would 6-6 in a bowl game be the floor? 5-7?
I've just said all along, I want the team to be significantly better this year than they were last year. And that's a cop out. But you know what? If they play in a bowl game, I'm happy. If they
Todd,
are 5-7 and have beaten some decent teams, I'm fine.
Todd, they improved last year. They were 3-9, then they were 4-8. I like that. That was a very long, drawn out. Don't make me get into this now, you son of a bitch.
Greg, for 23 years, I'd sit in my office on the side of my desk, and some 14 or 16-year-old kid would just throw me a story, and that was my only response, is just to take a deep breath and do a little bit of self-talk and say, I chose this profession. I chose to come and make a difference in kids' lives. I can't help it if they're assholes. And that's what I would say to myself when I take that deep breath.
All right. I've got my own answer. We'll get to that here in a minute. Cornhusker Corner says, in my opinion, if a coach is legit, you should start to see results immediately. For me, that means 6-6. Husker Chuck says, I want them to not start 0-2. Strange to open with 2 on the road. With Terrible says, with the way the schedule is, we could definitely win 7 games. Joel says, win the West. You guys are coming in fast. Roger says, just beat Colorado, and I'm good. Buddy, we don't want a 1-11 season. Blaine says, at this point, 6-6 would be significantly better. I know, look.
The curse of the hypnotoad.
Yeah. I know it's only January. I'm just going to show this up here again. All right. So let's do it. August 31st in Minnesota. Is that a win or a loss, Todd?
No, we are not going down this road, Greg. We're not. No.
All right. Good one from Brian here. Schedule is the second most friendly since joining the Big Ten. Friendliest schedule was probably last year's, so there's that. I look at this and I'm going to say it. I said it in August. I'm going to say it again. I don't see any team that's a guaranteed L on the schedule, so why not? Sorry. All right. We got the Cornhusker Corners been very patient with this pinned message from way back when. Let's talk about the fact that we are 3 days removed from the 2022 season where Nebraska went 4-8, and there are already articles saying we could make the playoff. I think it was our very own Nate McHugh says, what are the chances we win the whole damn thing?
Well, there was an article today that showed up on Twitter. I don't know where it originated from, but it was basically titled 5 teams that could do what TCU did. And unfortunately, the picture under the headline was Matt Rule.
Yeah.
Yeah, nothing like setting, the curse of the horned frog.
So you and John have your Monday night therapy. I have my own version of therapy. And the biggest thing that I come away from therapy is managing expectations. Whether it's in life, in your home, in your office, on the football field, just manage those expectations. This is an idea. To hell with 6 more weeks of winter. Punxsutawney Phil, let's ask Nebraska versus Minnesota. If he sees a shadow, it's Nebraska. If he doesn't, it's I don't remember. I don't even know if he sees the shadow, then the 6 more weeks of winter.
I don't know. I always got confused.
If you know the answer to that, please drop that in the comments, as Punxsutawney Phil is not a high priority for me. All right, Cornhusker Corner says, imagine Nebraska comes out and storms to a 21-point lead over Minnesota, only for Rule to kick an onside kick in the third. Oh, damn it! I gotta pre-read these before I just go blasting them on the screen. You're killing me. There was something else I wanted to talk about, but wouldn't you know, I've kind of forgotten. I know what it was. Since you're here, Todd, you should know, within the last week, I turn on my Hulu and I see Nebraska wrestling against Campbell College or Campbell University.
Yeah. They went out east and won a couple duels out there. Yeah.
Good for them. Yeah. Do you have a quick wrestling recap you want to provide us or no?
Well, just real quick, Nebraska, starts off in their Big Ten schedule this weekend. I'm not sure who they wrestle Minnesota tomorrow night at Devaney. I will be there. I'm going to get down there and watch it. Yeah. And I was doing a little bit of surfing around the old internet, and Ridge Lovett, who's redshirting this year, is wrestling in a big international tournament over in France this week.
Really?
Freestyling over there. And a couple of other Nebraska wrestlers at Nebraska who train with the Nebraska Wrestling Club are going to compete over there too. Not who are currently wrestling with the team. So like Ridge Lovett's redshirting, so he can go ahead and do that. So
I guess if you're redshirting, you're still on the squad.
Yep.
And I feel like if you're still on the squad, I apologize for the crass corporate phrasing that I'm going to use because I know you hate capitalism. But you're under contract, are you not?
You are under contract.
So how can you go? The Lakers wouldn't let LeBron go play overseas. Like take the year off. Go if you're injured. What happens to, what happens to those commitments and obligations that you had stateside? You know what I mean?
Well, I think that's a concern, but keep in mind that Ridge Lovett is redshirting this year, and he could be competing unattached in some NCAA tournaments. I don't think he has, but he's been in the wrestling room every night, training with the Nebraska Cornhusker team. He's also been working with some of the the guys that are part of the Nebraska Wrestling Club, those guys that focus on at the international level, and there's a good number of them. And hey, the reality is that Coach Manning is one of the best freestyle coaches in the country, and a lot of guys come to Lincoln, Nebraska to train under him. So it's really, Greg, it's no different than taking that Olympic year, like a lot of college athletes do, where they take a year off to focus on training and trying out for the Olympics. So it's kind of what he's in a roundabout way doing.
I didn't realize that was a thing.
Yeah.
I got to highlight this one since we're talking. Look, I say it. I've said it to our Corn Nation wrestling writer. Dylan is the best. So if you like following, Nebraska wrestling, you've got to make sure you check in on Corn Nation and read his articles because they're thorough. I learn a lot. I'm not the biggest wrestling fan. I'm not the best. I'm not the most knowledgeable. Let's put it that way. But his stuff is good, layman terms.
Yep.
Check it out. But Cornhusker Corner says Nebraska wrestling is legit. Wish collegiate wrestling got more attention. It is the sport of all sports, in my opinion. Sneaky fun to watch.
Yeah. Now, Dylan, I'll tell you what, Dylan's the best kept secret in terms of a wrestling writer. He is excellent. And, any wrestling fan in the state of Nebraska or any fan of the University of Nebraska that has a little bit of a inkling about the sport, you need to read. You're going to get better coverage on Corn Nation than you're going to get from any other media source as far as wrestling is concerned. He just does a great job.
And just like the rest of us, he's grossly underpaid. So, couple more here, kind of about the 12-team playoff that the NCAA is going to go to. Brian kicks it off here. 12-team playoffs, just a play-in opportunity to see who gets their ass kicked by the 3 to 5 teams that actually belong in the championship conversation. I don't disagree. But Husker Chuck says top 4 teams have a significant edge sitting out round 1 and resting. Hope the first round is before Christmas.
I don't think that's what they're talking about. I think they're looking at the first round being those quote unquote New Year's Bowl games.
Yeah.
That's what I think they're talking about.
And the Cornhusker Corner says that a little update from a previous bit of information. The Georgia transfer tight end that's visiting this weekend's Brett Seither, if I'm pronouncing that right, or Seither. It could be either or. See what I did there?
There you did. That's cute. That's good.
Thank you. Nobody's called me cute in a long time. Thanks, Todd. All right. Anything else that you have, sir?
No, I really don't. It's thanks for giving me a ring there, Greg. I've had a pleasure joining you tonight, and it was fun to kind of go down the old memory path with Don Dre and and there's Joe Zweiback's Jarospeed. Oh my God, Roger Moore, that takes me back to, oh geez, yeah, Joe Zweiback's Jarospeed.
Well,
the greatest commercials that existed.
Jarospeed. Hold on. What in the hell am I about to look at?
He was Joe Schweiback's Jarospeed was a sponsor for professional wrestling that was broadcast out of the Omaha studio back.
Gotcha.
In the day. So give you more energy, Jarospeed.
That was probably the precursor to Blue Chew. All right, now listen. It's not going to get you all bedtime ready, but if you need a delicious treat and you want to help out the Nebraska football program, Pipeline Jerky. They are absolutely not paying me to say this. The pork jerky, the honey barbecue, or you can get the peppercorn beef jerky. It's delicious. It's a great treat to eat. So, I don't know where I was going with that. I'm legit not paid to talk about that. So, with that being said, we thank everybody for joining us. Great time tonight. Great interaction. Great comments, questions, and thoughts and memories. Thank you, Todd, for stepping in under very short notice for a truly enjoyable show. And I wasn't doubting that from you. I knew you could deliver, and you definitely did. And we do hope that John does feel better, at least by Monday, so that you guys, you two old farts, can go and relive the good old days, go down memory lane. Yeah, I don't know if you know this, but the older you get, the longer memory lane gets too.
Yeah, it does, and it's harder.
Yeah, and it gets a little foggier too. So. All right, so for Todd Wolverton, I'm Greg Mahochko. This is the Five Heart Podcast. Thank you again so much for joining us on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, I think. Make sure that you follow Coordination on all of our socials. Follow the Five Heart Podcast, although I'm not going to lie, it's really only active during football season. So that's the number 5 Heart Podcast on Twitter. Until next week, what do I say? Oh, yeah, 5 Heart. I got too many podcasts.
We always ask you.
Remember that 5 Heart is all the heart you need. Todd?
Go Big Red.